As we were just discussing Secure Score, let me take you out and show you a demonstration of what Secure Score actually looks like. I'm going to browse out to securescore.office.com and authenticate and log in. And when I do that, I'm going to be taken to a splash page. This is the dashboard. And as you can see here, we have some various welcome messages. Let's go through some of those. The Welcome to Office 365 Secure Score will give me a basic understanding of what the tool is and what it does. Next, moving from left to right, this will give me more in-depth knowledge around what Secure Score is that we just talked about previously. It's going to explain about taking action to improve my score. It's going to talk me through how to analyze my score, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then lastly, a disclaimer. As we all know, even though I can go through and mitigate all security findings in my tenant, I still cannot make it 100% secure. And so that's what this disclaimer is basically covering. As I scroll through this web page, I could see what my actual Secure Score is. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But focus on the right side of the screen under What's New. This will give me some new workflows and new controls, such as setting outbound spam notifications, enabling the customer lockbox feature, etc. As I move down the right side of the screen, I can also see risk assessment. And this will give me a good idea of what I'm currently at risk for attack, such as account breach, elevation of privilege, or data exfiltration. What's interesting is as I scroll down to the bottom of this web page, I can compare my score with other Office 365 tenants. So as you can see, my Secure Score is 63 out of the average score of 29. And there's also a Learn More button that I can learn more about how this is calculated. As I scroll down to the very bottom here, there's also a Get Advice section where I can talk with the community to get additional ideas and insight around Secure Score. Let's scroll up to the top and take a look at my actual Secure Score. It's 63 out of 257. So based on this, I can have 63 points out of a total of 257 points. And how those points are calculated, we're going to talk about here in just a moment. As I scroll down in the center of the page, I can see my target score of 310. Now what's interesting is I have a modeler that I can use this slide bar to adjust. So I can go all the way over to the left, starting at 63, and see 0 actions are taken. If I move this just one notch to 113 as my target score, there's one action I can take. We'll talk about actions here in just a moment. This modeler is nice to know though, so that if I can put it in the middle or slide all the way over to the right, it will give me an idea of how many actions I need to take to hit that target score. So what's interesting for our partners out there when they work with customers is they can slide this over to the left to maybe the first notch or the second notch, focus on those 2 actions, and then keep going over to the right until they complete to the max score. Realistically though, most organizations will probably not get to the max score anytime soon because it does involve quite extensive work, such as setting up multi-factor authentication for all users in the environment. So I'm going to put this back on middle of the road here at 310. And if I scroll down, I'll see different actions in my queue. Here you can see 24 actions are in the queue. And an action will tell me something that needs to be mitigated security-wise in my tenant. As I click on Enable Multi-Factor for all global administrators, this will give me a good idea of what this action is. Down at the very bottom here, I can see under Threats, Account Breach and Elevation of Privilege. If I click on Account Breach, this will give me a good idea of what the account breach actually is with some background information. Very handy if I want to learn more about what these threats are. Over on the right side, I can see different items such as the user impact, the implementation cost, and the action score. What's interesting, if I click on Learn More, this will take me out to that section of the tenant to actually make that change. So this will explain what am I about to change, how will this impact my users, and then if I click Launch Now, this will take me out to the actual tenant to enable that feature. Very handy to learn more about how to do this in my planning. I'm going to collapse mobile factor authentication for all global admins and look at the entire list. What's interesting is I can filter this on different categories such as account. So this is going to show me all of the actions that I could take for Secure Score by account. I can also show this by user impact. What is the low-hanging fruit that I can accomplish right now so that it has a low impact to my end users? Now, if I scroll up to the top, the tab at the top under Score Analyzer will allow me to see a historical view of my secure score over time. So as you see, this goes back to February 27th, and here we could see a little bit of a jump around March 7th to get to my total score today of 63. And remember that 29 is the average secure score. What's interesting is I can filter this based on date as well, or I can show just the last 3 months. What's very handy is if I click export, this will allow me to export this list into a PDF, a comma separated values file, or I can also export between the actions and the controls, and we'll talk more about that later on. When I do this, this is very handy because I can import it into Power BI or into a dashboard to show to an executive at my customer. If I scroll down, I will be able to see more information about the actions. So here I can see what category and what their total score is, so I could get a good understanding of how implementing that action will actually raise my secure score. So as you can see, enabling multi-factor authentication for all users will raise my score 11 points. Clicking on that, we'll get to the same view that we saw earlier about how to actually enable multi-factor authentication.